Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's Wellness Wednesday session. So today we're going to have a presentation by one of our Senior Planet sponsored athletes. And these are individuals that were chosen in response to Senior Planet's call for adults aged 60 and above who are excited about fitness and wanting to share their experiences with accomplishing their wellness goal. Today we're hearing from Senior Planet sponsored athlete Jerry Smith. And this is actually her second presentation to this group. Her first was back in April. But over 5 years ago, Jerry's health journey began when her doctor warned of prediabetes. And adding to her medications for blood pressure and cholesterol, Jerry committed to enhancing her lifestyle. After witnessing significant improvements in just 3 months, she started sharing her healthy habits with peers. And now Jerry is advocating for minority women's health, emphasizing movement and well-being. Today, Jerry's going to be sharing some helpful nutrition tips, and then you will have an opportunity to cook along with her as she makes a delicious vegetarian chili. Jerry, the floor is yours.
Welcome back to Movement, Meals, and Mindset. As Nicole said, I'm Jerry Smith. My first blog was on movement. We talked about exercise, or we did exercise, sitting and standing, so everyone can exercise. Today, we're going to talk about meals. I want to focus on what we put in our bodies every day, because that is very important to our health. As a lifetime Weight Watcher member and a subscriber to the U.S. Agriculture myplate.org, I've spent a lot of time planning and thinking about what I eat, what I cook, and what I feed my family. I've always been an adventuresome eater, trying new cuisines from around the world. My focus on healthy eating has spurred me a love for cooking and learning to prepare many dishes. When I travel, I intentionally make sure that I take a cooking class in any international country I'm in. My favorite cuisines to cook are Asian, African, and Mediterranean. The following are some tips from my plate, which I introduced in my first webinar, to help seniors eat healthier, and how I have applied these techniques to my own life. First of all, make eating a social event. So try to have a meal with your family or with friends, so that there is not only eating going on, but there's some conversation going on. Also, take advantage of technology. Enjoy meals with family and friends in other states and cities. I've taken to heart this idea, and I often have a video chat with my grandchildren so I can have a meal with them because they live in a different state. Drink plenty of water or liquids. You may not always feel thirsty when your body needs fluids, and that's why it's important to drink beverages throughout the day. If you enjoy coffee and tea, that's fine, but plenty of water, milk, or 100% juice. My mother, who is 94, has encouraged us to drink water, 8 glasses a day since the 1970s, long before bottled water became a staple in our daily lives. So today, her children, her grandchildren, and now her great-grandchildren have made this a part of their daily routine. Add a touch of spice. Limiting salt is very important as we get older. Fresh and dried herbs and spices such as basil, oregano, and parsley add flavor without the salt. I'm a super fan of alternatives, and so I use herbs and spices a lot when I cook, and that helps me reduce the amount of salt that I use. Make the most of your food choices. Older adults need plenty of nutrients, but usually fewer calories. So it's important to make every bite count. Foods that are full of vitamins and minerals are the best way to get what you need. I like to remind my family that the quality of food that we put in our bodies is very important. We all enjoy a guilty pleasure now and then, but nutrient-rich food should be the staple of our diet. Be mindful of your nutrients. You may not be getting enough nutrients. such as calcium, vitamin D, potassium, B12, fiber, and also protein. During routine visits with my doctor, I ask about changes that I need to make in my diet because of my age. Read the nutrient facts on packaged foods. And also speak to your healthcare provider to see if there's any changes that you need to make in your diet because of your personal situation. I read every label before I put anything in my shopping cart. Sugar, salt, and extra fat is hidden in all kinds of foods. So it's best to check the amount of these in each label. And keep food safe. Discard food that has an off color, flavor, or texture, and refer to the use by dates on the packaging. Canned and frozen foods are a great option if shopping trips are difficult. In my previous post, I promised to provide some hints to those who don't like to cook or don't want to cook. So here are a few suggestions that you can use if you don't want to cook. Rotisserie chicken, to me, is a magic food. You can do so much with rotisserie chicken. You can make chicken salad, tacos. I like to make chicken sliders. So there's all kinds of options, and it's already made for you. Ready to eat hard-boiled eggs is another option, has great protein. Canned fish, tuna, salmon, sardines, those are very healthy for your body. Canned beans, which we're going to be using in our recipe today. Pre-cooked whole grains, brown rice, quinoa, cauliflower rice. I've taken on using cauliflower rice in quite a few things that I make. I make a cauliflower fried rice. I like to make Indian food. So I sometimes substitute the cauliflower rice for regular rice. Pre-cut vegetables keep you from doing the work that we're going to do today, but I saved you a little bit. And also frozen fruits and vegetables. Today, I'm going to make a tasty vegetable chili. The recipe and the ingredients were attached to the registration link. So I hope some of you are going to cook with me today. So let's get started. So first of all, I have done some of the prep work in the essence of time. So let's go through the ingredients first. Nothing's worse than getting your meal all prepared. It's in the pot, it's cooking away, and then you realize, oh, I left out one spice or I left out one ingredient. First of all, we're going to start with a little olive oil. We're going to saute our vegetables in that. Some garlic, started on that. Onion, we're going to spend a few minutes on that. Red pepper. We're going to put green chilies. Now our spices, we have quite a few spices. We've got cumin, we've got chili powder, red pepper, salt, little salt, not much, oregano. This is ancho chili. I like my things a little hot, so I mix the regular chili powder with the ancho chili. Ancho's a little bit stronger. And this is kind of my secret weapon. Smoked paprika, delicious, adds great flavor to what you're cooking. Okay, so let's get started on our veggies. First of all, we're using carrots today. I have chopped most of the carrots, so we're just gonna spend a few seconds talking about chopping veggies, because this does take some time. So for carrots, I like to lay them on the side, slice them. These are the results of the slicing. And then I stack those slices and cut them in thin strips. Turn them sideways. Can you see my cutting board? And then I stack those, and then I just cut across the grain. And everything comes out in nice little diced pieces. Now, when you're making a veggie chili or anything with a lot of veggies, it's important to try to make all of the slices the same size. I mean, all of the dices the same size so that they cook evenly. I also started, we're having sweet potatoes. I know that seems like a strange thing in a chili, but it's delicious. So I've started the sweet potatoes. I peeled the sweet potato, I sliced it, and then I diced it. So the way I dice it is just like the carrots. I stack it, slice it in thin strips. Give it one turn, and now it's ready to go into little dice. Just cut across, very simple. So now our sweet potatoes are ready for our chili. Next, we're going to do our onion. And I didn't do the onion ahead of time because I wanted to just show a little bit about easy ways to cut onions. I haven't figured out yet how to stop crying, but at least I can cut them easier. So first, I go across the onion like this. So we cut through the onion, but not through the root at the back. We leave that intact. And then we turn the onion and then we slice down and try to make those slices as even as possible because we want these diced onions to be pretty much the same size. So now I've cut the onion through the middle and I've sliced it. So now we're ready to dice. And we just same way, we just dice through that onion. This goes fairly quickly. I'm trying to learn how to compost, so I have like a little container on the side to put all my cuttings in. Just kind of cleaning up a little bit here. A few of these didn't come out as nice as they should have, so I'm fixing that. So now half of our onion is ready. The recipe calls for 1 whole onion, so that's half. So we'll quickly chop the second half, same way we did the first one. Are there any questions? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Okay, no news is good news.
I did see one question just pop in. Okay. Zelda asks, why didn't you remove the skin of the onion before cutting?
Okay, so I'm sorry. I didn't cover that part. I skinned the onion before I got on the demo. I did as much pre-work as I could because I know we have limited time.
And you know, Jerry, I've heard that placing a tall glass of water in front of you or near you can help with those onion cutting tears. I don't know if that works for everyone, but it seems to work for me.
And I have a list of ways to keep me from crying. You can't see the tears, but they're there. So now the last thing we're gonna chop is our red pepper. And I decided not to do this ahead of time always, so I can show you a little trick. So you start on the side, you slice a little bit, one side, then you take your knife, and so you want to get that core out. So you go around the core like this, take the core out. Now we want to take out this white membrane. Sometimes that can be a little bitter, so we don't want that in our chili. It's going to pound out whatever seeds are left in there. Now, I've half the pepper. I'm just going to slice it thinly, much like I did the carrot. And then we're going to dice this and put this in the chili also. So there is quite a bit of veggie cutting up front. So I tend to do this ahead of time or before I start cooking. I want all my veggies ready to go before I start cooking, because I don't want to say, oh, it's time to saute the garlic, but I haven't done the garlic yet. Like, oh, okay, now I got to stop and do that. And I've already turned them in the pot. And that just doesn't work for me. The second half of this pepper cut, and then it will be almost ready to start cooking. I need my timer to keep me on time. Okay, red peppers are done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last thing we have to do is the garlic. And so I have, it was 3 cloves of garlic, 2 cloves of garlic are already done. I use my microplaner. I find it easier and more efficient when I'm doing garlic, when I'm doing ginger, anything like that. That's, for me, somewhat challenging to dice very fine. If I put it on the microplaner, I'm done in no time. And I don't have maybe big humps of garlic, or if I'm using ginger in whatever it is I'm making, which I truly don't want. Okay. There's our 3 cloves of garlic ready to go. Okay. I'm gonna rinse my hands quickly, and then we're gonna get started with the pot.
Jerry, someone's asked, Sandy actually is asking if you leave the seeds in with the peppers.
I take the seeds out. Most recipes that I use require you to take the seeds out. So now we're going to start to saute our veggies. So I'm using a cast iron pot. I find this holds the heat better. So this is what I like to use, but you can use stainless steel or whatever pot you have, it works. So we're gonna start out with a half a tablespoon of olive oil. That's not much olive oil, but these veggies are gonna release some water. So should be fine. So I'm gonna give that one quick second to heat. So we've got our onions, our peppers, garlic, carrots, sweet potatoes. So we're ready to put all of that into the pot. The chili peppers go in with that. So I'm gonna open those quickly so that we can dump those in when we put the veggies in.
Can you use cast iron pots on glass stoves? Or
Was that a question? I missed it. Say again.
Can you use cast iron pots on electric stoves?
I believe yes. When I lived in Texas, I had an electric stove. I had one of those glass top stoves.
Glass tops, yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to use cast iron on that.
Yes,
Thank you.
I have an electric stove, and that's mainly all I cook out of is cast iron, and it's fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah, same here.
They heat evenly, so they're wonderful.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
I can learn. I learned something. Yay!
Always. That's why I get up every day. I'm going to learn something.
Way to go, Helen.
I grew up with a West Indian grandmother, and that's all she cooked out of was cast iron.
So I'm dumping in the onions, the peppers.
Cast iron is so heavy. I've been afraid to try that. Thank you.
Carrots. Garlic. And the sweet potato. So this needs to saute for about 5 to 7 minutes. So while this is sauteing on medium heat, you want to keep an eye on this because we don't want it to burn. So you need to stir it occasionally. We're going to put our spices together. Oh, I forgot. See? Well, everything needs to be in front of me so I don't forget any ingredients. Chili pepper.
Jerry, somebody asked, where did you get that beautiful cutting board?
It looks Hawaiian. I'm not sure. I think it came with me from Texas, I believe. I'm not sure. All right, so we're gonna start on the spices. So,
can you add turmeric to the spices?
I'm sure you can. I cook a lot of Indian food, so I use a lot of turmeric. I'm sure you can hand, and turmeric is very healthy for you.
Right, thank you.
First of all, we're gonna start with 2.5 tablespoons of chili powder. And so like I said, I like my stuff a little spicy. So I'm putting 1.5 tablespoons of regular chili powder. And then I'm going to put some ancho chili powder in, which has more spice to it. And really, this is what makes this veggie chili taste so good, is that all of these spices are just delicious. They really make the chili taste good. Okay, I'm gonna give this a stir. Doing good. Got some, my chili powder, because I use this for my oil, is a little stuck in here, so I want to clean it out. All right, next we're going to add 1 tablespoon of cumin. Somebody asked about turmeric. Cumin is another spice that I use a lot. I like the flavor of it. They use it in Indian food. They use it in Mexican food. So a lot of uses. A little dry oregano. We're using 1/2 teaspoon of dry oregano. It's amazing how many different kinds of oregano. So they have Italian oregano, Spanish oregano, Mexican oregano. So I'm not sure that there's a lot of difference, but I try to stick with the one that the recipe calls for.
Jerry?
Yes, ma'am.
There is a big difference. The Mexican tends to be a little bit more robust.
Oh.
Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah, they all add flavor. So there's a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now we're gonna put in the smoked paprika. So adds a little additional smokiness to the dish. We're gonna add a little cayenne pepper. If you don't like hot, you can leave this out or cut back a little bit. I like spicy, so I'm going full board. And then a little salt. I'm using some pink Himalayan salt. It tends to be not as salty as like kosher salt or something like that. And when I cook, I only use fresh ground pepper. The difference is amazing between what's in a bottle and what you grind yourself. It's just really good. Okay, we're gonna stir this together a little bit, mix this all up. We're about ready to put that in with the veggies there. They probably need another minute or so of sauteing, but trying to move this along a little bit. So what I like to do when I add my spices is I like to make a little circle in the middle of my spices. And what that does, I mean, in the middle of my spice, in the middle of my veggies. And what that does is it gives me an opportunity to expose those spices to the heat in the pan. And that heat brings out the flavor of those spices. So I'm gonna dump those spices right in the middle. And they need to saute with the veggies for about 30 seconds, not long. But that heat just makes the spices bloom. So I'm going to stir that in with the veggies. And while these are soaking up all that flavor, I know you can't smell this, but if you're cooking, you can smell what you're doing because those spices just take off. So now we're ready to add the last ingredients. And the last ingredients are the tomatoes and the black beans. So I have 1 can of, and we talked earlier, can you see that? No salt added. So when I buy canned veggies, I look for no salt added or low sodium. And when I said I was gonna do something, so these are regular tomatoes. And the recipe called for fire roasted tomatoes. I couldn't find fire roasted tomatoes with no salt. So the amount of salt in these fire roasted tomatoes is 280. The amount of salt in these no salt added is 15. So there's a huge difference, especially in canned veggies, of how much salt's involved. So when I was talking earlier about read the label, it's really important for you to read that label so you know what you're putting in your body. And if you have high blood pressure, you don't want all that salt. And so I have no salt, black beans. And one other way to get some of the salt out, if you can't, no salt, you have to look for it. It's not easy to find, is to rinse those veggies. And then that gets some of that salt that's in that can out.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So regarding the tomatoes with salt, if you use that, added salt tomatoes, couldn't you just cut back on the amount of salt you add to the recipe?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. You need some salt, but you definitely could cut back. This recipe, because it's a healthy recipe, doesn't have that much salt added to it. But nice. I try to always get the no salt added veggies if I can.
Thank you.
So Jerry, what did you just say about how you would decrease the salt in the cans if there was too much? You just said it.
So you take these beans, these are no salt, but if they weren't, put them in a strainer and just rinse them with a little water. And that gets
water. Great, thank you.
That gets that salt out.
Thank you.
We're going to give these veggies a quick stir. They are smelling delicious. We're going to add in the tomatoes. We're going to add in, now the recipe calls for rinsing those beans. Because I'm using no salt, I'm not rinsing those, but you can rinse those. Okay, so we got all the beans in, we got the tomatoes in. We're gonna give this a quick stir. We got one more thing. That's the corn, and it's in the freezer. So I have to dig that out. So we're putting 1 cup of frozen corn and some in a 1/4 cup measure because I have to measure something else with a 1/4 of a cup. And so I don't love to do dishes. So I try to save what I can. So now we're gonna add some broth to it, 3/4 of a cup.
What kind of broth?
Well, it says veggie broth. So if you're a vegetarian, you probably want to stick with veggie broth. I like a little more flavor, so I'm using low sodium chicken broth. All right, so everything is in the pot. I'm giving it a good stir. So you need to bring this back to a boil. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. And then it needs to cook for 30 to 40 minutes or so. Now you can do this in a crock pot. You just take all these ingredients, do the prep work, dump it all in the crock pot and let it cook for 6 to 7 minutes. I mean, 6 to 7 minutes, 6 to 7 hours. I like to do crock pot when I'm gonna be gone all day. I put it on in the morning, and then when I come home in the evening, it's ready to go.
Will it be thick or thin?
Say that one more time.
Will it be thick or thin? Like
thick or thin?
The thick or thin, the chili.
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. Thank you so much. So I put in 3/4 of a cup of broth. It might get a little too thick for you. You can always add more broth toward the end, but let it cook for the 30 minutes or so, because it should thicken up when it's cooking. And if it's a little too thick for you, just add a little more chicken broth.
I love it thick. I love thick chili.
Yeah, I like it thick too. So I'm gonna let it cook. I made some earlier. So I wanna show you how that looks, how it came out. It's dark, it's rich, and it's delicious. So I like to have some toppings. So you can top it with whatever you want to. I like these jalapeno strips, some avocado, a little lemon wedge. I put some sour cream, I put some cheese, whatever you want. It all makes it delicious.
Do you put a top on the pot while it's cooking for the 30 minutes?
You know what I do? I do, but I watch it because, well, I obviously don't want it to burn, but I like to see how it's thickening, how thick it's getting. So I'm using a cast iron pot. Once it comes back to a boil, it hasn't come back to the boil yet, I'll put the top on and turn it down to like medium and kind of let it simmer so those spices get in. Are there any more questions?
You can use any beans, right? Any beans you want?
You could use any beans. I make a white lightning chili with white beans.
White beans, yes.
And chicken. And I use green chilies in that too, but that's what they call it, white lightning chili. And it has some spices in it that makes it hot.
So white beans and black beans, okay.
Black beans, white beans. I normally don't use these dark red beans because I like black beans. So normally I put 2 cans of black beans in mine, but I want to try to stick to the recipe today.
Would you use chickpeas? Would you use chickpeas?
You know what? You can use chickpeas. I have another really not just vegetable chili, but a vegetarian chili, and it has chickpeas in it.
The chickpeas cook very quickly.
Right. So I would probably put those on later in the process.
Right.
These beans are already cooked too, because these are canned beans. But the chickpeas might get a little mushy if you put them in too early.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry, I just take a bunch of beans and I cook them at one time in the Instant Pot. And I Googled what was the weight of the beans in a can. And so I freeze them in bags. And I know when I need a can of beans, which I did today, I just take a bag out of the freezer, doesn't have any salt, has nothing in it, because I just cooked it in the Instant Pot.
I do exactly the same thing, especially for black beans. I make like a big batch of black beans. I put them in little plastic bags and throw them in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's fresh black beans, right?
Yes. Yes. Dried. Yeah. Fresh dried.
Dried.
So Jerry, what do you eat with it? It's beautiful looking and delicious, but there's no calories in it the way you made it. What do you eat with it?
There's calories. Oh yeah, there's calories in there.
Not a lot. It's mostly vegetables. There's not enough for a meal.
I'm going to tell you. So this protein. So you're going to get the protein you need in this meal because of all those beans in there.
Right.
But I normally serve it with. I served it a couple of days ago to my family. They were my guinea pigs. I tested it out on them, and I just made a coleslaw to go with it. So there's no more protein in the coleslaw, but you know they want to have like a little side dish. So I made some red and green coleslaw. But yeah, this is a full meal. This has all the nutrients you need.
Jared, we have some questions about the beans. Do you rinse them before you add them to the veggie base?
Okay, so you can rinse them, especially if you're using beans that have salt in them. So it's better to rinse them to get that salt out. You don't have to rinse them. That's an option, up to you.
About what size is a serving?
I believe it is a cup and a half, because the one that I showed you is this is more like 2 cups. This is probably a little more than a serving.
Yeah, because I'm diabetic and the number of carbs is too much for me for one meal. So I need to know how much to cut it. So I still would be able to cut it back and still have a decent sized portion if I cut back so that I'm getting the right number of carbs.
And you're getting too many carbs because of the beans.
Well, and the sweet potatoes.
Right. So
and the corn.
You could use
those are all things I have to count carbs in.
Yeah, you could use a different veggie. You could use zucchini. You could use all kinds of veggies. You know, diced cauliflower, broccoli. Right. Yeah, you don't have to have the beans and the sweet potato. You can use other veggies. Yeah, it's very versatile.
Yeah, but it would be okay if I cut it back if one serving is a cup and a half. If I cut it back to 1 cup, then that's actually, it looks like a very small serving, especially if you're eating beans. It's very filling, and 1 cup would probably fit my diet needs.
Exactly.
I wouldn't be able to have, like cornbread or anything with it, but yeah.
Okay, I wasn't going to go there. Truly isn't all that healthy, but it's delicious with cornbread. So you have to make choices.
Yep.
Why do you use a red onion instead of the regular yellow onion?
You know why? Because I like red onions.
No.
They are sweeter to me than most white onions or yellow onions. There are some Vidalia onions that are also sweet, but I tend to cook most of the time with red onions unless the recipe specifically, like when I make that white lightning chili, I don't use red onions. I use white onions because it throws the color off. But I tend to use red onions in most things.
Okay.
We have Barbara with her hand raised. Barbara, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I was wondering if you would be able to tell us, or if you feel free to tell us, did your hemoglobin A1C go down below the pre-diabetic range when you started cooking like this?
Yes. That was one of the things I was working on, was my A1C.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I changed my diet and it didn't change my hemoglobin A1C at all. So that's why I was wondering, maybe I didn't change my diet in the right way. So
are you exercising every day?
Oh yeah, I exercise a lot.
Okay. So I would chat with my doctor. I went to see a nutritionist also who helped me on this journey. So there's, like you said, maybe you didn't change the right thing. So I would work with my doctor or my nutritionist and try to find out what are the things I can change to get that A1C down.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any
Let's
more?
see, yeah, we have a couple of folks with their hands raised. Let's go to Irene, iPad Irene. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, Jerry. Just wondering, how do you organize your recipes? How do you keep them? Where do you keep them?
Oh, okay, Irene, you're going to ask me that question?
How do you organize your recipes?
I know, not very well. So I have electronic recipes, and I'm a cookbook collector. So I have a whole bookcase with nothing but cookbooks in it. And I can sit and just open a cookbook and start reading things and, you know, figuring out something to make. So they're not that organized. On my laptop, I have folders. So I have folders for Mediterranean food. I have folders for Asian food, for African food. I have folders for healthy food. And then I just have some run-of-the-mill recipes, things that I've made that I know don't fall in any of those categories. So they just say recipe. Is that what you were asking me?
Yeah, because mine are exactly the same all over the place. I'm looking for a good system. Maybe somebody else can suggest. I'm looking for a good system. Like I've heard of an app called Paprika or something where you can pull in all the recipes. So I'm looking for some suggestions.
Yeah. I think the electronic way works best for me because I like cookbooks. I buy cookbooks, but I tend when I cook to go onto the internet and find a recipe or I got some eggplant. What can I do with this eggplant? Or I have some whatever, zucchini. What can I make? That's what I do. So the chili started boiling. I put the lid on and I turned it down. So it can cook for about 30 minutes or so.
Jerry, there was a question I saw in the chat room earlier. Somebody asked, when you're doing this in a crock pot, do you set it to high or low?
I'm sorry. That is high for that's low for 6 to 7 hours, high for 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
And you know how crock pots work, they're very forgiving. So, you know, if you don't get home till a little bit later than you thought you were going to get home, it's probably still going to be okay.
Yeah, I love crock pots.
Yeah, not much chance of anything burning or anything like that.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and then we have Arlene with her hand raised. So we'll go to Arlene G.
Hi, Jerry. Did your cholesterol go down? And how long did that take for the LDL to decrease?
My cholesterol is pretty good, not very bad. I have high blood pressure and pre-diabetic. I have some cholesterol issues, but not too bad. Somebody earlier asked about the amount of carbohydrates in there. So I try to watch my carbohydrates also for my cholesterol. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any more questions? Comments?
Yes, we have. Yes.
With me?
I'm sorry, I couldn't tell who was speaking just now, but I do see that Judy Morris has her hand raised. If you like, you can use the reactions icon to raise your hand to ask Jerry a question. That way we'll know who to call on next.
Okay. Two things. One is the person who was asking about the A1C, make sure that you give it enough time because it can take your body a long time to catch up with what you've been doing. When I first started eating better after I'd gone through a diabetes class, it took 6 months for the change in the size of I lost 30 pounds, but it took 6 months after that till all of my numbers, my blood pressure, my cholesterol, my A1C were all where they should be when my shape caught up to my weight loss. So make sure, that you're giving it enough time. The other thing was I kept being afraid the way you were cutting and stuff, that you were going to cut yourself. But they have, when I was working with kids and teaching them, I discovered cutting gloves. And So when I think about it, which is not often, when I'm cutting and grating, the hand that's going to, when I'm grating, the hand that's grating, and when I'm cutting, the hand that's holding what I'm cutting, I'll use. It's just a knit kind of a glove, but it's got something that the knife doesn't go through. And if you're cooking with kids, it means that you can teach them a little bit earlier how to use a knife than if you're not using that. You can feel safe in helping them to learn how to use sharp knives if they're wearing a cutting glove.
Great. I've not heard of that. That's great info. Any more questions?
Yes, we have Miriam Ruminski.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, my blood pressure is a little high, and my doctor has put me on medication, and I'm afraid that, but it's still, I try to have less salt, but and I use spices and everything, but it just doesn't do it. And sometimes it doesn't make the food tasty unless you put a little bit of salt. I even use like lime juice or lemon juice or something else, but it just doesn't do it. Do you have any other suggestions that, like, I don't know, for salt for like alternatives to salt?
So I don't know what all you eat, so I can't really speak to that. But the one thing I've found out, and especially like I said about watching the labels on the food you eat, you would be amazed how much salt are in certain items.
Yeah, unfortunately, whatever it is, I cook a lot of my own food from more or less from scratch. I don't use a lot of canned things, pre-cooked things. So I don't have a lot of that added salt.
So something else is causing that high blood pressure issue then.
The other thing, it's important to stay hydrated. The more you drink, the fluids, water, etc., will help to flush some of that out of your system.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Hydration is important.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to do that. And also it helps me because sometimes I get a headache, and it helps me with headaches. But then on the other side, I used to get up once a night to go to the toilet. Now I'm trying to get up twice a night with all the water. There's always, but thank you very much for that. So.
One thing we didn't talk about also is when you, or maybe I think I mentioned it in the beginning, is when you eat out, you cannot control what sodium or sugar or whatever it is that you're eating. And for me, because I have pretty much eliminated most of the salt when I cook, so when I go out to a restaurant, my body immediately reacts to the amount of salt in that food. It's delicious, the food's great, but my body knows that I'm taking in salt that I wouldn't normally take in. So like the other person said, I try to flush that salt out with water.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Adrienne with her hand raised. So Adrienne, go ahead with your question.
When I went, what helps me in cooking is to, like you said, prep everything up front. So today, when you were cooking, I had all of my silver bowls with everything in it in the way that I was gonna go. So I was like, zip, 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 we're done.
Yeah.
I find that prepping helps a lot.
It does, and for me, it helps me make sure I don't leave something out.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dave, do you see any other questions in the chat room?
I have a question.
Okay, Carol, go ahead.
Jerry, do you have a recipe for your white lightning chili? That sounds delicious. Would you be willing to share it?
Oh, absolutely. I will send it to Nicole, and then Nicole can figure out how to post it or whatever they need to do.
Awesome.
Because
I like spicy also.
Yeah, Nicole can probably put a link on the YouTube channel, or Jerry, if you send it to me, I can put it up on my webpage for Lunch and Learns.
Okay, Dave, I'll do that.
Thank you, Jerry. Sure. And thank you for today.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed this.